After weeks of injuries and buys, it finally feels like reinforcements are here because on today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we have our I have to check top 58 wide receivers here for week 7. Yep. You think it's 58? I think I counted it correctly.
I've already
right?
seen
I think
Smith shoes, but
no. It's 57. It's 57. Our top 57 wide receivers here for week 7 of the fantasy football season. I'm your host, Sean. I'm joined by my good friends, my fellow knowers of ball, my fellow co-hosts. They're back, the three of us. We've missed Keegan. Keegan, how you doing today, man? Davante Adams is a Jet. How's that set in here for Gang Green?
Yeah, nothing like trading for a player you've been targeting for an entire year and waiting until you're 2-4, and now you have to go 9-2 just to make playoffs for the first time in 14 years. Just pure class from the New York Jets, per usual. I have really no take on it other than maybe they make them more or less worse to watch. But yeah, pretty dumb to wait this long.
I know it's your job to be cynical about the Jets, and if I were in your position, I would be cynical too. I would not want this team to hurt me anymore, but Davante Adams is going to bring a level of professionalism to this offense that it was sorely missing. So I think it's a good trade. When you give up and this is a chance for me to shit on Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman gave up a 3 for Jahan Dotson. You gave up a 3 for Davante Adams. So all things considered, I mean,
yeah, but I wish you won. Like it just doesn't matter until we
sure it does.
Make playoffs.
It's
week 7.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Team's way better. Your team's
what happens though? What happens if we lose and we don't make the playoffs, and then we have a 41-year-old Rodgers?
Well, if you lose,
31-year-old Davante Adams,
then that's bad. But
we're not going to make the playoffs. You think they're going to win 9 games? I don't think so.
11 games isn't going to. Wait, you're saying you have to win 7 more games?
No, they have to win 9 games to likely make playoffs, and there's 11 games remaining.
No,
aren't you a 2-win
they don't
team?
need to go. They don't need to win.
We're
11
a 2-win
games.
team.
No, you make the playoffs.
They don't need to win
9 these days.
Oh my god, dude,
11.
I was looking at this recently, and there's like a very small number of 2-4 teams that have started and have made the playoffs.
That's fair. But you guys have Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall.
So what?
It's a good team.
We couldn't beat the Denver Broncos.
Well, you didn't have Davante Adams at the time, and it was
fucking matter.
old man Rodgers. Old man Rodgers, the pouring rain. So we're going to talk more about the Jets receiving core in this episode because we're covering receivers, and I'm excited to get these two's opinion on how we rank Adams and Wilson. Aiden, positive here. You got to watch Caleb throw a masterpiece. You've been watching his highlights all week, and you're already getting prepared for the Jayden Caleb Bowl, calling Jayden a first-read merchant. How are we doing this week with being a Bears fan?
It's sweet. I'm on bye. I'm 4-2. Caleb was robbed of Rookie of the Week for the second week in a row by Jayden. So I'm really excited for the Twitter Bowl next week. I think it's going to be fun. Regardless who wins, the other team was wrong on who they took. So I'm excited. No Bears it honestly feels good. Like I haven't felt this good.
It's the best.
On a bye week in a while. Like past bye weeks, it's like thank fucking Christ they can't embarrass me. And I'm like, this is great. Get some reinforcements. Tyreek Stevenson, Brisker back. Take down the first read merchant and cruise to 5-2. So feeling good.
First read merchant.
And I've gotten 10 days off, so I haven't thought about how the Niners almost blew another game to an NFC West foe.
Big game. Always a good time. Game. Super Bowl rematch. Big game.
Yeah, love it. I'm so pumped to see the Chiefs on the schedule. The Chiefs, who haven't been able to score any points all year, coming off their bye week, you know it's coming. You know Mahomes. Mahomes going to throw 5 touchdowns out of the best game of the year against the Niners. You just know it's going to happen. I digress, though. Before we dive into the rankings, though, this is episode 200 of the Regression to the Mean podcast. I haven't had a lot of time to really process it. We've just been so in season mode, just pumping out content for all of you guys. But it's amazing to say the least. The growth we've had. I know we've celebrated occasionally here on this channel, but I just want to take the time to thank these two guys. They're just the best to do this with. They make me better every single day, and this show would not be anything without them. So I just want to thank the two gentlemen here for making Regression to the Mean what it is today. And how about 200 more, fellas?
It's in the middle. More. I love that.
400 more. Why not? 400 more.
600 more. Why not?
I think our fiancés and girlfriends would love that if we did 400 more.
They would love that.
We're going to need 100,000 subs, I think. But, let's see if we get there. We'll see if we get there someday. Gotta dream big.
Until this starts paying the bills, I don't know how big the fiancés and girlfriends will ever be on the pod, but maybe one day,
A guy can dream, but at the end of the day, it's self-sustaining. That's what you got to keep telling him. It pays for itself at this point. It's a business. It's a positive in the margins.
Okay. You don't understand. We have to rank all 57 top wide receivers. You don't get it. Look, if I don't talk about Tutu Atwell this week, the mean team's going to think I failed them.
If I don't highlight Ray McLeod as a positive RTM score guy, did I even do this right? Right?
I thought you were about to do the "this is the end" quote. I'm gonna fucking kill myself. I thought you were going straight into that one. So no.
If I don't get to start Jawan Jennings this week in Dynasty, if I don't get to talk about Noah Brown emerging as the wide receiver 2 in Washington. Okay, so if you are new to our rankings, and this has been a long intro, so if you're complaining about our long intros, these episodes are time-stamped, okay? We've had some people in the comments complaining. I literally time-stamped this. Do you know how long it takes me to timestamp these episodes, lovely viewers? It is not an easy process. Aiden has seen me do it. It is laborious, but I do it for all of you. So if you don't want to hear us talk in the intro, just use the timestamps. I digress. Rant over. Okay, our episodes, when we do rankings, are pretty straightforward. I've ranked the top 50-something wide receivers. I've broken them into 6 tiers on this episode. We're going to go tier by tier. We're going to call out guys that I'm higher or lower on versus Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings. This episode and our rankings in general are powered by something called the RTM score, which is essentially an aggregate of a Vegas implied team total, fantasy points per game, expected fantasy points per game, opponent fantasy points per game to the position, just an aggregate of all of that to tell you who you should and shouldn't start this week. Boys, before we dive in, though, very quickly, Aiden, I'm sure this is the first time someone has seen our episodes. They've made it through that lengthy intro. They've gotten through Keegan's Jets cynicism. What should they do if they've made it to this point of the episode if it's the first time clicking on one of our videos?
First timers, welcome to the channel. What are you going to do? Kick your feet up, enjoy the show. Sean is so kind to timestamp it for you. We've even got it listed in the description here, what players are in each tier. So technically, you don't even have to listen to me ramble. We've got the link to the sheet as well. But give us a chance. Enjoy the show. It's going to be fun. We're going to give you some good, hard-hitting fantasy analysis. Give us a like, comment, subscribe, whatever you're feeling. But just give us a chance to enjoy the show.
All right, boys. We are going to start things off here with our Tier 1 wide receivers 1 through 7. I've got Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 1, Malik Nabers, wide receiver 2, Jamar Chase, wide receiver 3, Chris Godwin, 4, A.J. Brown, 5, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6, Drake London, 7. Welcome back, Malik Nabers. Keegan, how happy are you to welcome Malik Nabers to the fold? How we doing, man? Leak is back. How we feeling?
Leak. Yeah, all-time star wide receiver move to be recovering from a concussion and go to a Travis Scott concert. Like
bullish.
Absolute dog. Super bullish. Yeah, I think that alone is to
all
happen.
Vibes.
Yeah, so many flashing lights, but that's Leak, dude. That's him, flashing lights. I'm pretty excited to have him back, though. I mean, Daniel Jones, Aiden, you sent a highest percentage of first read throws, 88%. And you know who gets those first read targets? Malik Nabers. No scam. I'm done talking about scam. Put him in the jar.
Take the jar out. Put $1 in. Put $1 in.
I am excited, though. It's going to be good to have him back. I think I've really missed watching him play football. Can't believe he was out 2 weeks with a concussion, but good spot against Philadelphia as well, too. They just don't really know how to play defense, especially when it comes to guarding wide receivers. So I'm in.
Yeah, that's a lot of green. Philadelphia's given up the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers, 2nd most fantasy points per game, 2nd most expected fantasy points per game. Really, the only blemish here with Nabers is the fact that the Giants have the 21st worst implied team total rank. But what are you going to do? Like, that's just their offense. It's not like you're not going to be rolling out Malik Nabers, but man, it feels good. I've got him 4 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. I'm all in. Another guy I'm all in on this week is the Rod God himself, because my goodness, this matchup against the Ravens is looking like a tasty one. The man is the wide receiver 4 in PPR on the 15th best usage, playing against Baltimore, who's giving up the most points to wide receivers. And Mike Evans was limited today in practice, fellas. This is setting up to be a smash spot for Chris Godwin. Aiden, you're our Rod God connoisseur, backer. I mean, you've been a lifelong member of the Rod God fan club.
Yeah, I'm a lifer.
What are your thoughts on him this week?
A lifer.
Yeah, I'm a lifer. He's been amazing. He's been nothing short of absolutely amazing. You don't want to see Mike Evans injured, but that's good for him. However, could even be good for Keegan's guy, the lunch taker himself, Jalen McMillan is officially
J-Mac
on the menu. So, really like
Rod green light to be dead.
Yeah, it's like he's just doing everything you want. He's breaking tackles, he's catching balls, he's yakking. It's awesome. It's all 3 levels of the field with the Raw God. So, would not have guessed he'd be the wide receiver 1 after 6 weeks. But honestly, he's shown spurts like this before. He did it at the end of last year. Like the signs were there that he was recovering and getting healthy. And then another full off season. Yeah, dude, absolute stud.
All right. I called out Godwin. I called out Nabers. Keegan, is there anyone in this first tier else that you want to highlight here before we jump to tier 2?
Should we all just put a hand up here and just say
Drakey?
Sorry about Drake London? And we all just voluntarily want to put a hand up? Like, we were wrong.
I ended up with him on a team like panic pick, and it's like low key saving my season. So it feels good to apologize, man. It feels good. It's good to have you on
Tied
board.
for second among all players in targets with 54, and he's wide receiver 8 in fantasy points per game. Reek Woolen missed last week. Might be banged up.
Yeah.
Could be a good spot.
I will say, he still hasn't been a smash at ADP. This is kind of what you drafted him exactly to do. I'm very happy he's doing it.
Yeah.
But that was the argument, right? That was our argument, was like, dude, you drafted him at his ceiling.
Smash,
very happy to Drake London.
He is slightly over
delivering.
He's delivering it like a late first round pick right now when he was drafted towards the end of round 2.
Fair.
So
the last 2 weeks have been phenomenal.
He's slightly overperforming. We can't leave this tier without talking about the NFC North showdown, though. I think that game's going to be amazing for both of these guys between Jettas and ARSB. I think both of them could go nuts. Neither secondary is that good. Inside a dome, NFC a divisional matchup. So super excited for that one.
How are the Vikings? How are the Lions really the 8th best point total here? Is it because of how good the Vikings defense has been? Like, that seems a little wild to me. That's the best offense in football, in my opinion. Yeah. You think 8 points is too much for, like, being the 8th most? Is it too much for them because of that defense?
Yeah, it's a pretty good defense. But I'm also surprised that they've given up the 3rd most to wide receivers at the same time. I'm like equally confused what's going on here.
Well, they're a pass funnel, so they're really good against the run, the Vikings, and they're like bend don't break.
Yeah, it's a lot of underneath
they bend
stuff
don't
too.
break.
Like a lot of cover 3 and 4 where the PBR merchant, as George Pickens called him, could absolutely eat underneath this week.
I don't think George Pickens should be talking about anyone. Not until he scores a touchdown.
Honestly, if George Pickens played anywhere else, he could say whatever he wanted about another wide receiver.
So, probably. Yeah. Such a bizarre. We'll talk about Mr. Pickens a little bit later. Tier 2 guys, wide receivers 8 through 15. I've got DK Metcalf at 8, Diontae Johnson at 9, Cooper Kupp here at 10, Zay Flowers 11, T. Higgins 12. I've got T. Higgins and Drake London in the top 12. This is wild. Jayden Reed at 13, Terry McLaurin at 14, Steph Diggs at 15. Guys, I want to highlight here, I got Cooper Kupp 5 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. He had an individual workout on Monday, got cleared to continue to practice. He's been limited in back-to-back sessions. Sounds like he's a full participant away from playing this weekend. They've been posting a lot of videos. Like, their Twitter has been super thirsty about Cooper Kupp running routes out there. He looks good to me, my untrained eye. He does look like Cooper Kupp running out there. He looks sharp. It looks good. And they've got a pretty good matchup here against the Raiders. I know the Raiders have been pretty good against the pass, but I'm not that afraid of the Raiders. The Rams are coming off their bye.
It's Cooper Kupp, man.
This is a smash spot if Cooper Kupp plays. If he plays, it's a smash spot, in my opinion. I'm also super high on T. Higgins. I'm 7 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. T. Higgins just has flat out better usage than Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
just better. He's been out targeting him.
It's true.
Leads
in the last 4 weeks, he leads the Bengals in targets with 35. Now, the thing with T. Higgins versus Ja'Marr Chase is it's like, what does he do with those targets? Like, he does have 25 receptions on him with 260 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chase obviously has so many more yards because what he does with the ball in his hands is incredible. You know, his ability to hit home on basically any type of throw is crazy. But Higgins is also earning more first read target share. It's 37% to Chase's 27% right now, which is why T. Higgins is, I think, a wide receiver 1 play this week. I mean, all my dreams are coming true about T. Higgins this year.
Yeah,
you're getting it.
I thought you were almost going to retire from the fan club, and it's like you are signing an extension as the president.
No, I bailed on every mention of the sorry sports teams that I root for on my Twitter bio, and I've reserved it for one line and one line only. President of the T. Higgins fan club.
I respect that. Another AFC guy that I wanted to flag too that's kind of overexceeded my expectations is Zay Flowers. Dude, absolutely back-to-back monster weeks. Like his ceiling is higher than I gave him credit for. We'll see if he does it all year. I think he had, back-to-back duds in week 3 and 4. But yeah, he's averaged 120 yards the last 2 weeks, over 10 targets, about 8 catches a game. So really excited for him. The Tampa Bay defense has been fine. They definitely give up points, and Zay Flowers just gets so many targets. So I think this ranking is super fair. Yeah, we've got him, one spot ahead of ECR. That's super fair.
Yeah.
He's pretty much fringe wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 1, depending on injuries and bye weeks going forward.
Yeah, one guy to take my own shot here at flagging somebody is DK Metcalf. 2 touchdowns almost last week. He could have had 30 fantasy points last week. His toes are missed in that one catch, 70-yard touchdown called back.
That sucked.
Atlanta's been allowing crazy points at the wide receiver position. They've allowed 16 or more PPR points for receivers like DeVonta Smith, Rashee Rice, Chris Olave. I was also checking out one of Hayden Wink's usage recaps from week 6. Inside the 10-yard line pass rate, Seattle leads the entire league at throwing inside the 10 yards. And that's DK Metcalf territory. I think it's a really good spot for him as well. So let's see if he can convert some of those targets. He had 12 targets last week. 12 targets.
Is that a good thing? That's kind of my question. There's 59. Okay, thanks, Aiden. Is there? I'm looking at the notes. There's 59 receivers. I watched that Niner game, again, and I'm a JSN bag holder. All right, so this is going to be #no bias. But the offense looks a little bit better when they get these crossers over the middle with JSN, and I don't know why they don't run that play more often. It kind of feels like they're just forcing the ball to DK Metcalf. It's
cool.
kind of
do it every week.
I don't know. I get it. DK is a specimen, but he's been highly inefficient. Wide receiver 5 in expected fantasy points per game. Wide receiver 22 in fantasy points per game. And you're seeing that with JSN too, and we'll highlight that in a little bit. They're not really hitting home right now. So something's up with that pass offense. And I agree. It'd be nice to see both of those guys have big games. But we shall see.
Question in this tier before we go to the next one or go to the next player.
Yeah.
Is this the sell window on Diontae Johnson?
No.
I don't know.
You don't have concerns that
maybe
they go back to Bryce?
They will at some point.
I feel like they'll trade Diontae if they do that. I think there's like an outside chance that Diontae gets traded away from the Panthers.
It's his last year, right?
I feel like it's a good
agent.
They should probably keep him, right? If he's a pretty excellent receiver so far. I wouldn't trade DJ, but I mean, I think it's a fair call out. He has one of the best roles in all of fantasy right now, though. That's for certain.
They're just so average in terms of like neutral pass rate, and like the offense is very one-dimensional or two-dimensional, I guess. Just Chuba Hubbard, Diontae Johnson. Like that's so great for fantasy production, but it's not very sustainable season long. So it could be a guy to capitalize on high right now.
That's a good call out. I think they'll go back to Bryce at some point, but I don't know. Canales is kind of fire with the play calls, so it's tough. You'd have to have some stones to trade Diontae Johnson because he's been pretty sweet so far. But yeah, I mean, I'm I might have to send out a couple offers, Skeeks. Because if he goes back to being Bryce Young, DJ, my teams that I have him on are just so in danger. They're so in danger.
Yeah,
his production has been huge.
We've got him ranked at number 9. ECR has him number 10. Like, is there really ever a better time to sell somebody like Diontae Johnson? Like, when's the last time we had Diontae Johnson in a weekly wide receiver ranks this high?
It's the
Not
first
even us
time
personally, but the industry.
It's the first time he's ever had a good OC. So it's like the first time the OC's utilized him well. So it's kind of strange to see a 28-year-old break out like this, but we saw it with DJ Moore the previous year. We've seen it with Steph Diggs. We've seen it with a bunch of other guys that break out when they're older because they just get featured. So I still think I hold out hope if he is the point of emphasis in Dave Canales' pass attack. I'm a little worried about the injuries, though. He's popped up like the past 3 weeks dealing with groin and ankle injuries, which I don't necessarily love considering his injury past. So could also be another reason to trade him.
One more thing on this tier, actually, because you mentioned Diggs, and I was like, wait, where's Tank Dell? These guys are too far apart, in my opinion, both here and in ECR. They had almost identical roles last week. I think with Nico Collins out, it's hard for me to imagine why they should be very far apart. But I don't know. Like, what are your guys' thoughts there? You think Diggs is the clear, like, must out? Like, they both had Dell actually out targeted him. They had the same amount of catches, both hit pay dirt, and were 10 yards apart in terms of yardage. I just think like they're going to have pretty equal roles with Nico out. Like, they both have to step up and kind of fill that void.
Yeah, I should probably have Dell higher. you got hand up. You got me.
Yeah.
I probably should have Dell.
I'm shocked that ECR has Diggs as far as 11 though. Like, I think they should probably both be around like wide receiver 20. Both like safe wide receiver 2s. Like, Diggs feels a little too high there.
Wow. Yeah. I just got a sneak peek at the next tier, the starting player. That is crazy. Sorry. We can talk about this Tank Dell thing, but I agree, Hayden. Season high route share and targets.
Yeah.
First read on 43% of Stroud's throws.
Nico died for this, but the Tank Dell like year 2 season is kind of back on the menu, which is exciting. He looked sharp against a pretty good Patriots secondary too.
Yeah, and this is something I'm going to have to now consider with the RTM score is recent usage versus season-long usage because his usage has changed considerably with Nico out.
Yeah.
That's a good one. There's no chance I'm starting Darnell Mooney over Tank Dell. This is a good call out, guys. I'm going to move Dell up to the top of this tier and flip Mooney with Dell. Yeah, good point, fellas. I think that's a good call out. I'm gonna wait to see one more week before I get super gung ho, but
same.
I mean, he could probably find himself in this range. Honestly, healthy Tank Dell, I'm probably playing over JSN. Like, all things considered, that's a great call out, Aiden. We'll talk a little bit more as we get farther into the episode here. But moving on to tier 3, moving on to tier 3 here.
This is my tier here. Huh?
I've got wide receivers 16 through 26. So I've got Davante Adams at 16, DeVonta Smith at 17, Deebo at 18, Garrett Wilson at 19, Josh Downs 20, Mike Evans 21, JSN 22, Tyreek Hill 23, Brian Thomas 24, Jameson Williams 25, and Marvin Harrison at 26. So I got the Jets in this tier. This one is tough. I don't really know. I was talking about this earlier with the guys in the group chat and how to approach this. So before Tay got traded, he had the wide receiver 8 usage and the wide receiver 20 fantasy points per game production. And I was looking at that and I was like, that's probably pretty close to what he's going to have with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, like something in that range. So I was kind of comfortable leaving him in that spot, and the RTM score was pretty favorable to him. And Garrett Wilson, I'm looking at wide receiver 14 usage. Wide receiver 3 usage, wide receiver 14 production. His usage probably drops down into the low teens, mid-teens, but I think his efficiency is going to go up because he's going to be winning on more layup routes. So I feel like these guys are fringe wide receiver 1s right now, but I don't know how to approach it until after this week. But if Davante plays, you're starting him. He's like a top 20 play easily, in my opinion. Rodgers is going to throw him the ball 12 times in his first week. He is. And he's going to throw him 5 end zone fades. Think of how many red zone targets Davante Adams got from Aaron Rodgers. It was ridiculous. Like, they wouldn't even run the ball. Like, it was just this unstoppable fade play that they'd have. Davante Adams has like multiple 15 touchdown seasons underneath his belt with Rodgers. It's like that's why I have him ranked so high. But Keegan, I'll kick it off. Like, how are you approaching the Jets wide receivers?
I think Rodgers has already been supporting Garrett Wilson and Allen Lazard, like a fringe low-end wide receiver 1, and then like a pretty high-end wide receiver 2 throughout the season. And like DeVonta
Lazard's
Adams
the wide receiver 11.
Better.
Lazard, they're both 2 wide receiver 1s right now. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no,
he's supporting 2 wide receiver 1s.
Yeah, in actual point production, yes. I'm just more calling it out of how it is. I mean, let's wipe away Allen Lazard's 70-yard Hail Mary or whatever that was, and his numbers change a little bit. But yes, I think Rodgers can support them both. I do like that Todd Downing introduced a little bit more pre-snap motion to get Wilson in some favorable positions. Like, I noticed his routes changed a little bit, so that's always good to see. The offense was so stagnant before, but I think the biggest thing for Garrett Wilson is the position he'll be playing effectively will change quite a bit. He'll be running a lot more routes out of the slot, which is good for him. More space to run. I think maybe the usage drops, but hopefully we can see the production match his dropped usage. So now it's not just going to get peppered with targets as he had to in the past. He'll actually have some open space in the field to run after the catch. I think his numbers will start to marry a little bit with the usage. It'll look a bit more clean on the stat sheet. And hopefully we're not looking at this wide receiver 3 usage, wide receiver 14 points per game production.
Yeah.
As far as Adams goes, yeah, they love each other. I mean, they're just fucking obsessed with each other. I would not be surprised if the first play of the game goes to Davante Adams. I wouldn't be surprised if the first trip to the red zone goes to Davante Adams. My only hang up on this game is TJ Watt, and our offensive line has been pretty brutal. Aaron Rodgers looks very slow. He's had a couple fun moments where he's broke out of the pocket and made some plays like extended, but the fact of the matter is our offensive line has not been good. It's not lived up to it. Tyrone Smith looks like he's ancient out there. He just cannot seem to block anybody with speed right now. So I don't know what this is going to look like. I think this game is going to get mucked up a little bit. And if we do get through the red zone once or twice, it's probably going to Adams. It's my honest take.
I think you start both of them. Aiden, we're starting both of them.
Oh, fuck yeah. Whoa.
Of course you start them. I'm not saying you don't start them. I'm just like, temper your expectations.
Yeah. Because if you drafted, you drafted them both in the second / you have to start them.
It's rough.
First round. I drafted Wilson in the first round of the league. You have to start them. Especially with
Wilson's Tay's going to be the lead guy.
Yeah.
I think Tay's going to be the lead guy.
Probably, but I think there is a world where they both work.
Look, as long as we don't throw the ball out on Lazard anymore,
That'll piss me off. That'll really piss me off.
If this offense just becomes Tay, Garrett Wilson, and Breece Hall, it's pretty sweet.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
it's actually perfect. Yeah,
all things considered. Non-Jet stuff. Very high on Josh Downs this week. I know A-Rich is playing, but Josh Downs has a 30% target share even when he's playing with good receivers. So I'm all in. I'm speaking Keegan's language there, and I've got Marvin Harrison. Why am I doing this? Marvin Harrison up against DCR because I think he's going to play. He practiced this week. So I'll pause. Aiden, anything in this tier, speaking your language, anyone you wanted to call out here before we jump to tier 4?
Yeah, just want to highlight Smitty. I think him and AJ, we've kind of talked about it, are just absolutely must starts, awesome plays going forward with Goddard out. But really good year for him so far. I like your note on JSN as well. This figures to be a pretty up-tempo game in terms of them. And Atlanta, you'd like to see him start to do more. There's glimpses of it when he's definitely I wouldn't call it the focal point, but when they make an effort to get him the ball more, and it typically bodes well for the offense. And then there's times where they just completely go away from him, and it's pretty puzzling. The offense, I feel slows down as a whole. So I think when they're consistently switching between him, DK, and K9 instead of just trying to force feed either DK or K9, I think that offense works really well. So I don't know. I'd like to see more from him.
I agree. If they had thrown to JSN more, I think they could have beaten the Niners. Middle of the field, linebackers stunk. I just didn't really get it. I think if they just threw
more in general. When they started airing it out, going up tempo, the offense was moving. They were just trying to run K9 up the middle 3 times in a row, and it wasn't working.
Tyreek Hill Was the bye week enough to solve their problems? That's the question. I do think they will be better at coming out of the bye with Snoop. That just feels like they had enough time to figure some stuff out. All right, tier 4. Tier 4 is a wide tier here. I've got wide receivers 27 through 41. I probably could have broken it up, but I'm really not seeing that many differences. I guess Tank Dell and Brandon Aiyuk are in there. That's disrespectful to have in this tier. That's on me, hand up. But I've got Tank Dell, Brandon Aiyuk, Darnell Mooney, Amari Cooper, Jordan Addison, DeMario Douglas, Ladd McConkey, JuJu Smith-Schuster, George Pickens, Wan'Dale Robinson, Romeo Doubs, Xavier Worthy, Jalen Waddle, Christian Kirk, Michael Pittman. So pretty down on Brandon Aiyuk. You have to start him, but he's getting out targeted by Juwan Jennings. It's pretty rough out here. Pretty low on Jordan Addison. He is healthy. It is the post-bye. Detroit is gettable. I think a 24 ECR is pretty aggressive on Jordan Addison. So we'll see. I'm excited to see DeMario Douglas. I'm excited to see DeMario Douglas. I want to pump the brakes a little bit, but it's a pretty good matchup against Jacksonville. Drake May, very intriguing. You got some weird names in here. You got JuJu Smith-Schuster. Somehow he's in this tier. He's 80% Rashee Rice, but that's a startable player in fantasy. And I'm really excited to see Xavier Worthy post-bye. I think this is a great opportunity. Our corners are slow. You can throw it deep on him. I think this is a good opportunity for Worthy to hit home. But I'll pause here. Aiden, anyone in this giant tier outside of Tank Dell, speak in your language.
Yeah, I like the Pop Douglas call out. Seems like Drake May is very high on him. You had the can't guard him in a phone booth quote this week, which I thought was fun. It feels like that's absolutely going to be Drake May's go-to guy. So love Pop Douglas. Temper your expectations with Amari Cooper too. I forget if you said something about him, but don't expect some monster game from Amari Cooper game 1. I think that's going to take at least a week or two to really come to fruition. But yeah, this is a wide tier. There's a wide range of outcomes here.
Keegan, anyone in tier 4 speaking your language?
No, I mean, I do think. I just want to say that I would start Tank Dell over a lot. Like I would start Tank Dell over Jason, probably Tyreek Hill. You have to start Tyreek Hill, potentially Brian Thomas as well. But I kind of want to talk about Brian Thomas and Christian Kirk because Evan Ingram is a problem. And this year I don't own Evan Ingram, so it's pissing me off. Last year I had Evan Ingram, so it was great. But to come out and, start seeing 10 targets like that, I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. So now you have Evan Ingram in the mix. You've got Christian Kirk still, but Ingram bites more into that. And you've got Brian Thomas as well. None of them know how to catch touchdowns, which is a massive problem. I mean, Christian Kirk's day would have been pretty salvageable had he caught a touchdown last week. Same with BCJ, but that's got to be one of the worst fantasy pass catcher groups to try and decipher right now outside of the Dolphins for QB issues, just because it sucks for them and their situation. And I will say New England is a horrible matchup for these guys this week. So typically they've been pretty good against wide receivers. Obviously they've gotten outmatched, but I'm pretty low on the Jacksonville guys this week. JuJu, what's up, man? No comments. Cool to see him in a ranking, I guess, this high, but because you have to. But I think it's a fine play against SF. George Pickens, rough matchup this week. Like, be tough. Wary. Like, it's
and Russie.
You're probably getting Russell Wilson starts. Yeah, Russie, as infamous Jersey Jerry calls him. Russie back. But the good thing is the Jets defense has been pretty bad up front, at least in the trenches. So maybe the Steelers can buy some time for Russ. And
it's going to be so bad. You guys are going to beat them by 15 points. It's going to be so... The
15-0 maybe.
But the Russell start is going to be so bad, dude. I could be drinking milk on this one and I might get owned, but
no,
I don't
crush them. They should crush them.
I don't see it. I really don't. Russell Wilson was not a good quarterback last year. Now, he might throw a deep ball to George Pickens and he might score, but Russ is just check down Charlie, man. It was not.
And the other call out I had is, why are you so low on Jordan Addison? All it takes is one play with him.
The usage isn't that good.
Who cares? Has he ever needed good usage to hit home? It's going to be a shootout. Like this This is going to be an insane game. If I think it's going to go how it should go.
Yeah, I really hope so.
ECR has him ahead of Tank Dell.
I don't know if I would buy into that, but I do think Jordan Addison should be a little bit higher. I mean, obviously
they've got him ahead of Josh Downs. They got him ahead of Josh Downs.
No,
like, come on, man.
I wouldn't.
That's too high. I feel like Addison at 30 is fair.
I like him about
it's where
he is personally. I think I like him about where he is.
I mean, I think you're not wrong. Like, starting him makes sense. Like, with injuries, bye weeks, like, it's a good matchup. He scores well on implied team total and against Detroit, and he's efficient. So, like, there's enough boxes that he's checking there that he's a good start.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
I'm not out here being like bench Jordan Addison. I'm just like,
no. You're close. You're close there behind closed doors.
They had JuJu at 27, man. Come on, that's crazy high. Scam Dell, I miss you, man. You're the best. Okay, 2 more tiers. We got to get Aiden out of here. Tier 5, wide receivers 42 to 51. I've got Cortland Sutton, Christian Watson, Tyler Lockett, Jacoby Myers. Bub Means, he's playing right now. I have no idea what he's doing. Michael Wilson, DeAndre Hopkins, Jerry Jeudy, Rashad Bateman, Calvin Ridley. You know, guys, I was going to have Troy Franklin at the top of the... No, I was not. Shout out Troy Franklin for breaking out right now. It's kind of crazy to see him have 46 yards and 4 catches. So, okay, I will pause here. I think Tyler Lockett's the guy I want to call out. Usage is awesome. Like, the production's been pretty good. I know it doesn't necessarily scream off the page as the wide receiver 46, but when he's getting run, he looks good. And he's the thorn in JSN's side because he's still a pretty good player, all things considered. I'll pause here. Any guys in this tier, Keegan, speaking your language, or maybe someone you're lower on?
If Jacoby Myers plays, I feel like he's a start just because Rams have been pretty brutal against outside wide receivers, and now he's like their de facto number 1. And I'm not saying that's a perfect scenario, but anytime you can have like a cheap wide receiver 1 that you might have got off waivers, like it's a pretty good opportunity to have somebody on their team like that. But I would like to see him be a full participant in practice tomorrow, because I've got some Jacoby Myers shares. Depending on how they roll out Marvin Harrison, like I don't know how. I know he's recovering and maybe he's on track to play, but like the Michael Wilson start, of course I did, but then I saw him be questionable today and pop up as a limited participant in practice. But I like Michael Wilson in this tier. I like Jacoby in this tier. And then outside of that, Bateman is back.
Fuck yeah,
he's back on the menu.
Fuck yeah, we talked about him on waivers. He is so back, Keegan. We never quit. Never wrong. We were just early, man. Bateman is so back, dude. He's been trending up in a good way. Another guy I want to call out here, Keegan, Craig calling it Bateman, dude. We are carrying the torch there.
Yeah, Rashad Bateman's back. I just want to make sure we all know.
Yeah. Keep an eye on Michael Wilson, too. Marvin Harrison Jr. is practicing, but like he still has to clear every step in the concussion protocol. So MHJ doesn't play, and Michael Wilson is moved up to wide receiver 1 in that offense, which is a fun role. I know McBride is there too. I also just want to highlight Tennessee.
Yes.
If you started Calvin Ridley last week, I'm so sorry. You must have been looking at your sleeper app saying 0 for 8. My wide receiver had 8 targets and did not come down with a single catch. Will Levis has been so much worse than we knew. The bar was low, but like he showed so much more than this last season in his rookie year.
Brutal.
It is
brutal.
It's like they might just let him play 16 to full on tank and go get yourself a QB, but it is some of the worst QB play like in the NFL right now, like bottom 3, bottom 2. It's unbearable, and I feel bad for Hopkins because this was a guy that we really thought was
unbearable is the right word to describe it.
It's so bad.
Hopkins out of there. Get him out of there. Get him on a professional football team. Calvin Ridley has 14 yards on 14 targets over the past 2 weeks. Dynasty.
I just want to say this is a good lesson that sometimes you don't always have to chase the bag. Looking at you, Calvin Ridley.
Wow. Anti-bag chase talk. That's impressive here. Good for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes situation's better.
What happens to your bag if you don't produce any points? What happens to your future bags that you're hoping to collect?
Oh, did you see his targets too? Did you see that Andy Holloway, I think his name's from Fantasy Footballers, showed his video of all of his targets? Those aren't targets. Those are not. Those aren't targets.
No, they're not.
Those are like you can't do anything with that. That's like Desmond Ridder like targets. You can't come back from that. Okay, so quickly we're gonna do the last tier here. Wide receivers 52 to 59. Khalil Shakir, Xavier Legette, Juwan Jennings, Noah Brown, Devon Vele, Alan Lazard, Tutu Atwell, Ray McLeod.
Wow, we got Vele citing in the rankings.
I do. I just had to call out Vele. I just want to call this out because it's important. Juwan Jennings saw more targets than Deebo and Aiyuk last week. He led the team in targets.
He's not practicing.
So, Jennings?
I saw he didn't he's been very limited this week.
Oh, well, I should probably know that. I'm a casual, I guess. But if he doesn't play, that's actually really good for the rest of the pass catchers in this offense.
I didn't see what his injury was. Yeah, he did not practice.
Ankle?
A hip injury.
Yeah, he limps injury. Off. He limps off every 3 plays. So, also, if you want to get ahead of the waiver wire, I think Noah Brown is interesting. He could have another big week against the Panthers. He had 8 targets. He had 8 targets last week, and we've seen him play really well as of last year. He had a 3-week stretch where he was like the wide receiver 6 with CJ Stroud. So like it's possible.
Yeah, I wanted to call that out too, just because they don't really have. I mean, they have some other pass catchers in the offense, of course, with Ertz and younger McCaffrey, but they don't really have a true number 2. I feel like it's just upper grabs, and Noah Brown's like steadily capturing that role for them. And being number 2 in offense with Jayden Daniels is a really good spot to be. So good person to watch out. And then shout out Xavier Legette.
Dollar bill, baby. Aiden, anything in this tier that you want to call out before you jump?
Yeah, no one else. I probably would have called Noah Brown. Anytime you've got Carolina as your matchup for the week, you've got to be licking your chops. They're terrible. So they are probably going to hang another 30-plus points. Noah Brown should be heavily involved. Good to see Alan Lazard down here. It was frustrating watching him catch touchdowns the first couple of weeks instead of Garrett Wilson. So welcome to wide receiver 3, 4, whatever you are now.
It's really sad seeing Khalil Shakir down here. Hell of a player, and is banged up, but man, they don't throw the ball enough. They don't throw the ball enough to support
one dream is dead. It's Kincaid and Amari Cooper until further notice. So
the guy in this tier, though, if Diontae Johnson's ankle injury is real, like you should start Legette. He could go off against this against this Commanders.